My name is Ian. I am an educator here at the South Street Seaport Museum, and I'd like to show you one of our biggest and my favorite artifact that we have at the museum. It is an entire ship. This is the Wavertree, built in 1885 in Liverpool, England. But before we dive too much into history, let's center ourselves on one thing. Behind us is a cargo ship. What's special about this cargo ship, it's made out of metal. Look at it. That hull is made out of metal, specifically wrought iron, okay? 1885, we're well into the Industrial Revolution. In England, iron is plentiful. We especially know how to shape it into things that we want. Wrought iron is iron that has been shaped. This phone was brought to me by a metal cargo ship. This is how that era gets started, specifically in terms of global trade and goods being transported around the world, okay? So we're gonna get a chance to see all parts of this ship, including the cargo hold. What you have is a special opportunity to actually see parts of the ship that normal tours don't get to go on. And that's an exciting opportunity because this is a really cool artifact that's been preserved for us, all right? Are we ready to go aboard and see it?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start here on the main deck. Let's think about this. How often do you see like 18-wheelers? Very often, right? If you saw an 18-wheeler break down, would your first thought be, let's put it in a museum and no. You know what happens? They take it apart and they build other machines out of it, right? This is what happens when ships end their career. They're probably gonna take it apart and use those parts to build a better ship. Wavertree had a different story. This ship went all around the world. In order to get all around the world, one specific place you have to sail is the small amount of water that is in between the tip of Antarctica and South America. That's some of the worst weather in the world. We're talking about hurricanes giving you frostbite. It's 1910. We're going down from the Pacific Ocean back to the Atlantic Ocean. And what happens is the ship gets caught in one of those big hurricane level storms. The storm is so bad that this big mast that's right here in the middle of the ship snaps in half like a matchstick, falls to the deck, makes a huge hole in the deck, breaks the leg of 3 sailors, injures others, luckily doesn't kill anyone. In insurance terms, the boat is totaled. I mean that literally, because what happens is the boat limps into port in the Falkland Islands. They take a picture of it and send it to their insurance company and they say, nah, we're not fixing that. Nah. If you don't believe me, come see the picture. This is called dismasting. When the mast is broken, you have dismasted the ship. It is the equivalent of destroying the engine of a car. It can't move anywhere under its own power anymore. The owners of the company can't get money from the insurance to fix it. They decide, well, we'll cut our losses, let's sell it. They sell the Wavertree to a company that just needs a floating warehouse. Because here's the thing, Wavertree's still floating. She didn't crash, right? She didn't sink, right? But she can't be used as a sailboat anymore. For the next 5 decades, she's used as a floating warehouse on a river in South America. Until one day, a fellow from a maritime museum in San Francisco, hearing rumors of an old sailing ship, comes by this ship, puts his eyes on it and says, that's the Wavertree. That's one of those ships that used to sail all around the world. There's none of those left. It's crazy. That one's right here. It must be in a museum, right? He spoke it and then it was so. The South Street Seaport got a word that there is this big hulking ship just laying down there in need of repair. They towed it up to New York in the 60s, all right? In the decades since then, it has been rebuilt to look this way, using historical artifacts to make sure that it was what you would see if you were on this ship back then. I like that story because there's that little bit of irony that the bad luck that they got turned into your good luck today. Let's start, we're gonna go up to the quarterdeck right here. Not a super fancy reason why it's called that. There is just a prominent deck on this back quarter of the ship, okay? Pretty easy, all right? But let's make it more fun, all right? We've all heard the term poop deck, right? My students love when we talk about the poop deck, all right? This comes from the French word P-O-U-P-E. That is French for stern, stern meaning back of the ship. We are on the poop deck. The restroom is not back here. Please don't make that mistake, right? And if we do have questions about where the restroom is, y'all's is on the pier, okay? The boat's restroom was a hole at the front of the ship, at the head of the ship. Sailors would hit the head, right, if they needed to use the restroom. We are at the back of the ship. We are at the stern of the ship, aft of the ship, okay? We are right above the rudder. The rudder is the big old piece of metal that goes back and forth that turns the ship. This thing is a big chunk of wrought iron that is 2 stories tall. The only way to move that big chunk of metal is using this big wheel, also known as the helm, all right? The sailor who has the job of being the helmsman 2 hours at a time has to focus and can't leave. Captain never does this job. The mates never do this job either. The sailors do this job. That's because it's not a great job. This is actually not bad weather for it. Because imagine you're going through one of those nasty frostbite hurricanes and your job is to stand right here and you can't move, right? Now, if the sea is really heavy, this is going to be hard to turn. So I might get a second sailor to be on the other side there. Notice how I'm not driving the boat like this. For one thing, I'm facing the wrong way. That's not right. Well, I'm standing to the side and I'm lifting and lowering this, right? Because it's heavy. There's no engine on this boat. There's no motor on this boat. But what that also means besides pushing us, there's no power steering on this boat. So I'm lifting and lowering this, right?
And
maybe with the help
of water.
Yeah, you can see how it would be a difficult job,
yes.
Right? So this moves back and forth. What it does is it turns a gear, a long gear in the middle there. It pulls a rope, and that rope is attached to either side of the rudder, and the rudder moves like so. All right? Pretty simple technology, but done on a very big scale. I have my way to steer the ship. I need to know where to go. This is the job of the captain and his mates. And one of those mates, or the captain, is going to be standing over here, and they're looking inside here at a compass. Why is the compass inside this big contraption?
Protected from the weather?
Yep, right, I gotta protect that compass, right, from the weather, okay? This is the main reason. Let's think about this, the composition of this ship. What's it made of? All right, a big old heaping hunk of iron is what this ship is made out of, right? What's a compass made out of? A magnet. That iron's gonna mess up that magnet. I've taken students up here and I'm like, with compasses, and I'm like, all right, let's get an accurate reading. And I get 20 answers, right? Why? Because this ship's big old chunk of iron, it's got its own magnetic field. When they started making ships out of metal, they had to figure this out, right? Because we make metal ships, but we don't immediately get GPS, all right? So we put the compass inside a protective, you're right about protecting it, right? In a protective contraption. And what this is called is a binnacle. A binnacle protects the magnetic field of the compass. What you see on either side of this compass are 2 spheres of iron. I can carefully calibrate the distance that these pieces of iron are to the compass. That's something that someone can do off the ship, right? Make sure the compass is accurate, put it back on the ship, and I'm not gonna get lost out at sea. If this compass is off 1 degree, but I'm off 1 degree a day for 100 days, I'm in the wrong place, right? But these are things we figure out. These are things that the sailors figure out, all right? You see how we're on the knife edge between the age of sail and the modern age we have now. This is my favorite machine on the whole ship, all right? Now you're gonna keep hearing me say it, there's no engine. There's no motor. If I want to do work, capital W work, right? I need to use wind power or muscle power. I can aid those things with simple machines, all right? We know simple machines from physics class where you have your levers and your block and tackle and your pulleys, right? I can amplify muscle power using physics, all right? The way I do it with this specifically is I have a machine with a vertical axis that spins around like this, all right? If I need to lift something heavy, and there are many heavy things to lift, we can think of an example, the anchor, right? Probably cargo, one of the lifeboats that's normally right over here, all right? Or even the big yards that are way up here that are horizontal that need to raise the sails, right? If I need to lift those big heavy things, this is the machine I would use to do it. And I'll show you how I would do it, okay? So I'm gonna grab these right behind you, pardon me. So I can take a big wooden pole. This capstan, I'll have my heavy, we'll go with the anchor, right? I'll have my heavy anchor on an anchor chain. It's tied to a rope or a chain. I can put that rope or chain around here, right? And now this becomes a drum that I can spin around.
Four other guys.
Yeah. I now have a way to wind up that rope.
And down here, right, it's like, it won't go back.
Exactly. You hear those clicks? We've used a ratchet before. Each time you push it, it goes click. It's not going back, all right? And so this is what would happen. I could click. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to lift it. All right. Oh, I can tell. And lift it. Oh, all right, right? Or I could put this in. I could put 4 more bars in. I could put 2 sailors on each bar. I got 10 men now walking around in a circle using mechanical advantage. I can lift massive things doing this. These yards, these horizontal bars that you see that hang the sails, they weigh more than a couple cars. You have to be able to lift them using manpower. The distance I'm walking is now this big circumference. All right, we can use circle geometry to figure out if that's actually lessening the amount of specific muscle I have to use in each moment, right? I'm spreading out the work. And we see these in old pirate movies, right? They say lift the anchor, they're walking around in a circle, right? They're singing a jolly song as they do it, right? This is where that comes from. But let me show you my favorite part of it, all right? Well, what if something's really, 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 really heavy, all right? I want you to notice something. I'm pushing it this way, right? I can wrap it up. Well, I'll show you what happens if I push it the other way. It doesn't go backwards. It's a second gear. Watch how it spins. Second gear, all right? I can double the distance that I walk, lifting a bigger amount of weight, all right? I can lift massive, massive, massive stuff, all right? So I can get the job done, all right? Now, eventually, big ships like the Wavertree will actually get steam engines just for this job. Watch your step as you come into the door. Y'all came in here when they got the afternoon sun coming in too. It's really looking good in here. Welcome to the Captain's Saloon, okay? This is a nice room. What you're looking at is not original to the ship, but very close to what it looked like in the 1890s, okay? This whole room has carpets. This room has wood paneling, right? We've got a nice sturdy dining room table here, right? I have got some silverware atop a marble buffet, right? I've even got a nice pipe organ in the corner. He didn't have a pipe organ, the captain, but he had an upright piano. But we get the idea, right? Very nice room. I wouldn't mind spending some time in here, right? There's a reason this room is so nice. It's not just because the captain is very important. He is. The captain aboard this ship has 2 jobs. The first is obvious. Naval, right? He is a captain of a ship He is managing sailors. He has to go to navigation school. That is not free, okay? He has to learn how to read maps. He has to learn how to take a boat safely to the other side of the world. Standard job of captain, right? There's a second job he has. When the captain gets to port, when this ship is into port, and they need to sell their cargo, he's the merchant that sells it. What you're looking at is his office. Because this was not a ship that went from port to port. It did not have like a home port. It wasn't owned by a country. It was owned by a private company, and it was part of the Tramp trades, okay? The Tramp trades meaning it would show up to a port, buy and sell what it could, go to the next place, buy and sell what they could, go to the next place. No home place. I actually looked at its record, it's particularly in the right after the 1900. There was like 5 years where it didn't even go to Britain. It was just bouncing from Asia to Australia to America. Captain owns a certain amount of shares of the company. He owns part of the boat. He does not have a salary. His money depends on how much they can sell. How do I convince someone to buy the cargo that I have?
To your lovely conference table and you get them real drunk.
There you go. At a good old-fashioned wine and dine. You can bring them in, sit them down at the table, pour them a nice glass of wine, play them some music, and then, you want to buy coal? All right. After I served you that nice wine, look how nice my stuff is. Imagine how nice my coal is, right? This is why the room looks so nice. Now imagine if you are an able-bodied sailor who is getting just a couple bucks a week and you're sleeping on the other side of the ship. There's tension. This is the Victorian era. You think they had workers' rights of any kind? What happens if you get hurt? What if I break my leg and I can't work? What if the captain breaks his leg? He can still read a map. We don't care about how comfortable these people are, but we do care about what people see when I'm trying to sell things. So let's put this into perspective, because I can tell you that this ship held 2,000 tons of cargo. What does that even mean? So I'm going to give it some meaning. We're going to go down into the cargo hold, and we're going to walk along the very bottom of this ship. Now, off of this walkway, you're going to see places that look like concrete. It's not concrete, it's clay. The reason it's there is it's acting as ballast, balancing this empty ship. Welcome to the cargo bay. Stern to bow, biggest room of the ship, big cavernous space. Now imagine this space filled top to bottom with stuff. So when I say this would carry 2,200 tons of cargo, what I mean is we stack this whole room of stuff, that's how much we're carrying, all right? That's a lot. So this is really the birth of mass cargo being transported in metal ships. This is still how we transport things today, right? But this is how it got started. Types of cargo that we would hold: kerosene, coal, grain. We hook up a bunch of bags or barrels to a rope and lower it down into these cargo holds. We see. So here's our big one amidship. You can look up, you see wooden beams. You can take those wooden beams off. Above that is a waterproof tarp. You take that tarp off, you then have access from the very floor to the sky above. In the last 25 years of the 1800s, the amount of raw materials needed globally to fuel the Industrial Revolution doubled. The only way that they were able to accommodate that massive growth was ships like this. I want you to take a look behind us right here. There's a white taped line kind of going across. That's the East River. We're underwater. Now I give you this number, 2,200. That's the tons that it could carry safely. Let's all remember what era we are in and what sort of themes we've picked up on so far. I just read one record where they got to port and unloaded 3,100 tons, so exceeding its capacity by 50%, all right? Now they have an incentive to do this because the more stuff you carry, the more stuff you can sell. Unfortunately, what happens to an overloaded ship that gets in a storm? We're rocking back and forth, rock a little bit too far this way, water gets into a metal ship, done. Many ships like the Wavertree met unfortunate ends like this because of the greed of people who wanted to overload their ships. There's no standard for that yet. That's something that comes about during the Wavertree's time, but close to the end of its career in the 1900s. We now have on all ships, there are lines that are marked by international organizations that say, this is how much it should be holding. If the water line is above that, it is unsafe, right? And no cruise stuff was down here. There's one exception though. There's one thing that they stored down here, and it was in this big box that we see behind us here. This is their fresh water tank. That's water for everything. My fellow New Yorkers here, we use about 100 gallons of water on average a day. The sailors were allotted about 3 water bottles a day. They were very eager to catch any rainwater in like tarps. They would do laundry in salt water, but that was not great for their clothes. The challenges that our sailors are facing are gonna add up as we go through. Next, we're gonna go to the between deck. Okay, they call it betweens. But here's a good map to illustrate how global this ship was, all right? So you notice it's going to every continent except for Antarctica, which at the time is in the process of being discovered and charted and mapped, right? So things like coal or other raw materials are not distributed across the earth evenly. There's a massive amount of coal that you can dig up down in Australia. They're still digging it up today. There's a massive amount of coal over here in Northern Europe, particularly in the British Isles, right? And there's a good amount of it over here. But in all these other places, especially if you have steamships in these other places that use coal, you're importing it, right? You need someone to bring it to you, all right? This is the ship that did it. Other things that Wavertree would carry, this little fiber here. It comes from a plant called jute, and you can use it to weave together burlap. We don't have plastic bags. If I need a durable material to bag things up, I'm gonna use burlap sacks. All that burlap, all that jute fiber, mostly comes from Southeast Asia. The Wavertree is going from Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales in the British Isles, to Calcutta and back for the first couple trips. That's 5 months at sea. One of the things that it's picking up, and this is what's in the cargo hold when it's dismasted, it's picking up bird guano, bird feces. In the late 1800s, we're trying to figure out how do we become more agriculturally productive. Well, we use fertilizers, right? Migrating birds are dumping their feces on uninhabited islands in the Indian Ocean, and especially along the coast of South America, where for millennia, bird feces has been collecting. I can shovel it into the bottom of this ship and I can go sell it in high population places and make a big profit. This is what's in the cargo hold when it's dismasted, all right? We're in the bird shit business. The crew's quarters, we've got no refrigerator, we've got no fresh fruits and veggies, right? We have only things that are preserved for long periods of time. Salted beef, salted pork, canned food, or this right here. They called this, affectionately, ship's biscuit, also known as hardtack. The ingredients very simple. A little bit of flour, some salt, a little bit of water, dehydrated in a low temperature oven. You get this very, very tough little cracker.
Like rocks.
Yeah.
You've tried it before, right?
I have not. I'm waiting for a fresh batch, right? This has been sitting here since before I was hired. So sometimes this would be like the last food they had, right? Sometimes weevils will get into it. The sailors had a little joke that they would have to eat in the dark so that they wouldn't have to look at the weevils that they were eating. But you can imagine at the end of a voyage, if that's all the food that you got left, we're dealing with scurvy, we're dealing with malnutrition, we're dealing, first of all, with bad morale, right? If the food's bad. Pay, not enough. Let's put it in $25. Able-bodied sailor in 1 month would make about $300. You're working 84 hours a week on average. You can sleep for 4 hours at a time and work at 4 hours at a time. Those are your shifts, back to back. You will never have a long stretch of time to sleep. Why would anyone do this job? What are my alternatives at this point? I got no skills, no education, right? Do I want to work at a factory in England, or do I want to see the world? At least here, I got a place to sleep and food to eat. We're gonna go back out to the main deck. The seaport is here and has been here since the Dutch settled 400 years ago. There's a reason Wall Street institutions are right here, right? There's a reason why the stock exchange is here. There's a reason why all these banks are over here. When all these ships from across the ocean were unloading, they needed financial services. They needed places to sell. They needed markets, okay? This is where capitalism in America got started. This whole row on the side of the island here, there would be a forest of masts. This is the type of ship that built that economic system, and particularly built this city. All right, thanks, folks. All right.